Hey, hope you're well. In this one, I'm continuing with the plywood wall cabinets for the workshop. I did two single cabinets in the previous video, and in this one I'm making the double cabinet that sits between them. And as before, I'll be making it without a tape measure, a ruler, or a square, and without nails, screws, or any other kind of fixing, and no table saw, no dado stack, no router, just a track saw. I'm making the double cabinet out of birch ply. Did I mention it was a sponsored video? And I've rummaged through my stash and found some 18mm birch for the top shelf. The rest of the carcass is made from a 6mm outer skin and a 12mm liner that creates the rebates and housings, the rabbets and dados, that the 18mm ply fits into. I'm taking the cabinet width from the piece of cord I cut previously and transferred that to a stick and trimmed it back to size. The depth is the same as the previous cabinets, and I'm using the width of the other cabinets as the height for this one. It can't be the same height as it needs to avoid some electrics up near the ceiling. I'm squaring one end of the 6mm ply with a track saw and my DIY square. See the previous video for how that was made. And then I can flip the ply over and cut a piece to the length of the base and middle shelf using my rod or story stick minus two of the 6mm outer skins. I'm using offcuts as a gauge for that. And then I can cut two strips off this piece for the shelves. Actually, I cut three as the first was really bowed and I didn't feel comfortable using it. These shelves happen to be exactly the width of a guide rail, so there's no measuring needed, just a little bit of careful lining up. Then I need the two outer layers, that's the width of the guide rail plus the thickness of the 6mm inset back. And then I can trim those two to height in a single pass using the stick as a reference. And the final cut in the 6mm ply is for the cabinet back. Same width as the shelves, and I'll trim it to the right height once the cabinet's glued up. Onto the 12mm birch for the liners next, and this sheet already has a square end from the previous build, so it's a straight cut to the width of the 6mm outer. And then I need three strips cut to the same width as the guide rail. There's an 18mm upright between the base and the middle shelf, so I can butt a piece of 18mm ply up against one end of the 12mm liner, cut a strip of paper to the remaining length, and fold it in half to give me the right size for the liner. These need to be identical between the base and shelf, so I've taped the two pieces together with a double-sided tape while I make the cuts. By the way, leaving a few strips of the backing paper in between the two pieces makes it a little easier to take apart later. Onto the liners for the cabinet sides next, and I need to allow for the top, base and shelf. It's worth noting perhaps that a 6mm ply plus a 12mm ply isn't necessarily the same as an 18mm ply, so I'm using offcuts of each to represent the base, the shelf and the top, butted against the height of the cabinet, and then using the strip of paper trick again to get to the right size. And then I can cut these using the first one as a reference for the other three. And with all the parts cut, I'm just identifying the pairs with bits of tape. Finally, I can cut a strip of 18mm birch for the top shelf and the upright. The top shelf is the same width as the others in 6mm. And the upright is the same height as the sideliners, but plus the two 12mm layers. So the glue up's a little more complex because of that upright, so I'm taking the shelf first, using the upright to make the housing, but not gluing it in. I'm also using a few drops of CA glue in between the PVA to help grab the two halves together, but I'm not using an accelerator spray because I wanted to have a little time to get everything lined up. I'm going to leave that for the next 10 or 15 minutes. While that happens, let me tell you about today's video sponsor. That's Skillshare. If you watch a bit of YouTube, you've probably heard of Skillshare by now. It's a pretty amazing platform that has online courses on just about anything and every kind of creative endeavor you can think of: video editing, cooking, graphic design. I'm taking a YouTube success course from Marquez Brownlee right now, and I have Ali Abdal's Productivity for Creators queued up as well. With so many courses to choose from, it could seem a little bit overwhelming if it wasn't for Skillshare learning paths, course playlists, if you like, that have been curated to work together to help you get to where you want to be, whether you're a beginner just starting out in email marketing and newsletters, for example, or a more experienced user looking to get the most out of your Etsy or Shopify store, two things I have a particular interest in at the moment. Then you'll certainly find something for you on Skillshare. But you don't have to take my word for it. The first 500 people to click on the link in the video description down below will get a month's free trial on Skillshare to watch whatever you want, take as many courses as you like, attend as many classes as you can fit in to see if it's for you. And if you want to continue after the trial, then there are great value premium subscriptions available. So whether you're looking to learn more about something you're already interested in, or if you're looking to learn something new altogether, Skillshare will have something to help you out. And I'd like to thank Skillshare for helping me out and sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to that glue up and see how it's gone. With the shelf put to one side, I can start putting the base together, this time gluing in the upright and clamping everything down to the bench, adding a heavy weight to the upright as I don't have a clamp that would do the job. After 10 minutes or so, I can get everything unclamped. I've added spring clamps around the edges of the shelf, put some masking tape down on the bench, and then do a little dry fit. No dramas or crises there, so on with the glue up. 6mm outers onto the base first. Then the 12mm liners at the sides, paying particular attention to line up the front edges. Then the shelf, plenty of glue in that housing this time. Then the upper liners. And finally the top. Oh, and I'll add that weight back onto the shelf in the middle as well. And then just check that it's reasonably square against the bench top. I'm going to leave that for the next 10 or 15 minutes for the glue to firm up a little bit. Okay, so that's not too bad at all, actually. Quite happy with that. Knew this vise would come in handy for something. One slight irritation is that when I put it together, I was concentrating so hard on getting these front edges in line. I missed the fact that this liner, the 12mm liner on the right hand side, was just up by 1/2 mm, so it's pushed everything up this side by 1/2 mm or so. It's just a slight annoyance. Not the end of the world. Other than that, it's gone together what seems to be remarkably square, so I'm just going to get this out of clamps and we can get the back on it, clean it all up a little bit and see where we go from there. I cut the back slightly narrower by 1 millimeter or so, so there's no need to ease this one in. Just mark it up and trim it to height. And then glue it in, just weighting it down with the paint cans for the 20 minutes or so it takes for the glue to grab. Then I can give it a quick rub down with a P120 to clean up any glue squeeze, finishing off with a P180. So there you go, another simple cabinet to go with the first two, again with a nicely rebated top and base and the shelf and upright captured in housings, all made entirely from a little bit of plywood of different thicknesses and all cut with just a tracksaw and a little bit of care, and all the measurements taken from the space that's available and the whole thing just glued together, no fixings needed at all. I'm not trying to make life difficult for myself by doing this, and you shouldn't either. This is just a little reminder to ourselves that decent woodwork was being turned out long before we had any of these fancy tools, and most of the time all you really need is a piece of cord or a mark on a stick for overall dimensions. You can figure out the rest from the materials. I'm not suggesting either that anybody should do this for client work. Going to someone's house to measure up with a ball of string would certainly raise a few eyebrows, but it's a good exercise every now and then to get back to the fundamentals and put all the fancy stuff aside. Incidentally, the tracksaw that I used for this was the first Festool I ever bought back in 2008. Still going strong. I literally built my fitted furniture business with this saw. Maybe there'll be a video next year about why we buy expensive tools, or maybe quality used tools versus a mid-range new tool. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see, but I'll call this one done for this week and for this year. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Thanks to my 10-Minute Workshop Plus members for all their support. But that's it for this one. I'll see you very soon. All right, take care.